Hello there everybody, so Nightwagonhammer, and welcome back to Tokyo Babel, where I'm pretty sure we're going to go kill God again. Finding it convenient to attack as we stopped the chat, God launched a volley of light bullets at us. I chose to dodge. Adam counterattacked. The divine flame of Archangel Michael met the light bullets mid-flight. I myself struck a couple of them out of the air with my Picati sword, dodging the rest. What about Eve? Raziel summoned a wall of mud to protect Eve and herself. Oh, okay, thank you for answering that question immediately. The avatars of all 7 deadly sins shot forward, some to devour the bullets, some to deflect them. Unfortunately, even they had to eventually give in to the never-ending volley of light. Of course he is. Adam took a step back with a dissatisfied look on his face. Using that as my cue, I flew into the sky. The bullets, of course, followed. I cast my spell, summoning the one armament fit for the situation to my right hand. Yes! This again! A weapon of mass destruction, the laser-guided bunker buster codenamed Holy Nail. I hurled it like a javelin, passing through the volley of bullets like they were nothing. It hit God straight in the middle, exploded in a fiery inferno. My words as his cue, Adam started towards our blazing foe. The sword of Archangel Michael split God in two. With a tone of complete indifference, God proceeded to repair its body, if you could call that dreadful frame a body. Adam threw his sword to the ground. What part of the situation did he find funny? He stuck his right hand out and pointed his finger straight at God. Pretty ironic, really. Adam let out a cry. Okay, that looks awesome. The primordial man, reimagined and blessed by a legion of angels. Without hesitation, he declared his existence blessed, and with the blessing of countless angels to back it up, he transformed into the embodiment of justice. In other words, he made all those that opposed him irrefutably evil. The world changed with his words, for God suddenly turned evil. The one in front of our eyes was now a demon, the devil himself, a wicked spirit to be banished. Clutching Michael's sword in both of his hands, Adam sprang forward. God's body split in two again. Adam let the sword fall out of his hands indifferently, summoning another weapon the next moment. Durandal, a sword that Archangel Raphael had entrusted the hero Roland, with a hilt of pure gold and a blade that was said to cut through everything in this world. It was easily one of the mightiest holy weapons in the multiverse. Meanwhile, Cortana was a sword of mercy that was passed down through the British royal family. The two swords pierced the hard shell of God. The holy sword that served Saint George in slaying the dragon. Its design crude, it looked more like a giant mace than a sword, and so it crushed, rather than severed, the remainder of God's carapace that it fell upon. Damn, dude! The two swords of the medieval Spanish knight El Cid, Colada, a sword made of gold except for its steel edge, and Tizona, the blade which burned in perpetual flame. Oh my god, I know that name. That's a legendary spear. The holy spear that needed no introduction, the lance that pierced and killed Jesus Christ himself, the weapon of pure white, only the tip of which had been eternally colored in crimson, pierced through God. All holy weapons without exception, all born to banish wickedness. Right now, God was indeed irrefutably evil. The blessed weapons creaked in unison, obliterating the wicked God. With their saintly magic, they annihilated, crushed, and devastated all evil in their path. He was invincible. Adam's raison d'etre bordered on the inconceivable. His iron will bolstered enough power to condemn even his own creator, God. That, in the end, had no way to oppose such adamant denunciation. It was proof that Adam never was God's puppet. The inexplicable revulsion I felt towards the man had not waned. Nevertheless, I couldn't help but admire his gallant display. At the very same time, however, I found myself overcome by hatred. Blessing. I myself had been born under the blessings of billions, yet the path I ultimately walked was nothing but a curse. And so I finally understood. From the very beginning, I had been seeing myself in Adam. I readied the sword of the 7 deadly sins, thinking to help Adam finish the thing. Suddenly, a bolt of electricity shot through my veins. Adam, preoccupied with the ruins of what used to be God, was about to be caught completely unawares. Surprised by the intensity of my own howl, I got a hold of Adam's shoulders and pushed him towards the confused Raziel and Eve behind my back. It was coming. I could tell with certainty something would fall upon us the very next moment. I had to block it, no matter the cost. There he is. A pillar of light fell on God from the depths of the sky, covering the scenery in crimson flames. A tsunami of fire, a flood of inferno. Needless to say, the flames eventually jumped out at us as well. There was no use trying to block it. Those flames were potent enough to evaporate the entire season in an instant. We could have put the entirety of our magic to defend ourselves, and they'd still most likely turn even our bones to ash. Hence, only the cool-headed touch of science could save us from this predicament. A flock of basketball-sized white orbs surrounded us at all angles. The orbs split apart as they came into contact with the flood of fire. After coming apart, however, the orbs turned into bubbles that stuck to the flames, taking their vigor away. Then new orbs would come into being one after the other, repeating the whole process again. The fire couldn't reach us. The narrow space around us remained unaltered, surrounding air somewhat cool to the skin, ignorant of the surrounding flames. Everything else around us, though, seemed like a sight from hell itself. Raziel managed to force a few words out despite her stupor. The flames that once split the sea apart to save Moses and his people now consumed heaven and the body of God himself. And there was but one angel who could possibly command such power at will. Raziel gave Adam a nod. Like a receding wave, the flames eventually lost their former vigor. A single piece of God's carapace still remained, writhing on the ground, though not for long, as a man-like shape suddenly fell down from the sky, crushing it under its feet. Inexplicable joy assailed every pore of my body as I saw the face of our new guest. I had finally found him.
Metatron. もはやこの世界に神は存在しない。人間を自分に似せたと虚偽を振りまいたおぞましい形状の化け物は存在しないのだ。
久しいと言うべきか、メタトロン。お前がやってきたことを今さら弾劾する必要はないと思うが、それでも問いたい。なぜだ？
なぜと問う。神の秘密ラジオ。ではお前に問う。あの姿を見て、それでもお前は神を信仰できたか。
Nah, probably not. Its true form, a dreadful thing that didn't look like anything living, much less a human being.
メタトロン、お前は見たのか？この神の姿。
だが最初に見たのはゲテル。
Don't tell me that's the reason Gethel lost her mind.
彼女は私にすがった。神の姿を見てしまった。神がいかなる存在かを理解してしまった。私は彼女に教えられ、彼女の目を通して神を見た。
Gethel was the first one to see God?
くだらない。生き物ですらない。私はその時、自分自身に誓いを立てた。 こんなものの分際でこれは地上を浄化するための大洪水を起こしたのだ。その挙句に壊れて震災を起こし、あまたの世界を滅ぼし、ヘブンを血で汚した。これを罪と言わず何とする。
Well, at least you have legitimate reasons to hating God. Overpowered by Metatron's vehemence, no one could find the strength to utter a single word till now. But this last remark seemed to have triggered something in Raziel.
メタトロン、一つ聞かせてくれ。震災を起こしたのはやはり我らの父なのか。
それ以外に誰が。
Raziel seemed to swallow her next words.
確かにそうだ。
もうこの世界は終わりだ。ラジオ、お前も分かっているだ。何もかも終わりだ。
違う、まだだ、まだ終わってない。
ああ、そうだ。我々はまだ終わっていない。我々の行き着く先はもはや未来しか存在しない。
だがその未来は全ての過去を葬り去った世界だ。
The past kind of makes the present, therefore, making the future. You can't get rid of one.
それがどうした。過去の亡霊よ。私が作る未来に過去など必要ない。
Metatron considered the four of us coldly for a few seconds.
ラジエル、セファーラジエルを捨てよ。それは過去のものだ。
この本でかつてあなたも天上の知識を得たはず。それを捨てろと。
過去だからな。
Raziel hung her head, shaking it in resignation.
なかったのか。それほど苦しかったのか。
He ascended to heaven as a mere mortal, and despite being looked down on by all of its old inhabitants, he kept struggling to improve himself. He struggled to help God, to help mankind. He struggled and struggled, struggled and struggled, struggled and struggled, struggled and struggled, 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 struggled. Blech. The fruits of his labor disregarded by everyone, he continued to struggle. And the result of his struggle? God went mad, destroying and ruining everything the man had worked for. He realized that he worshipped a dreadful thing that had never been truly alive, that he admired, venerated, and served a sham.
さあ、今となってはもうどうでもいい。
いずれにせよ、すでに俺たちとお前とは敵対している。そろそろ殺し合いを始めたいのだ。
Adam took a step forward. Metatron, his eyes fixed on the original man, made a scornful smile.
他の3人はともかくとして、お前と私とは戦う必要がない。
何？
Huh?
お前は天使たちが作り上げた未来のアダム。この過去の世界はふさわしくない。我々のもとへ来る。
I really hope he doesn't.
ざれ言。
Thank you.
ざれ言ではない。お前を作り上げたのは生き残った天使たち。すなわちラジエ、カマエ、レミ。誰も私に気づかなかったのさ。私はいついかなる時でもパンドラにいた。ただの天使として、ただの悪魔として、ただの人間としてな。
Huh.
お前に俺が作られたとして、それがどうした？
Adam grit his teeth in irritation.
父親に逆らう。
黙れ。お前は先ほど他の3人と言った。イブを救いの対象から除去した。許せぬ。俺にはそれがただ許せぬ。あのセリフを吐いた時点で、お前は俺の敵だ。父であろうと兄であろうと、お前は俺の敵だ。
And Adam is officially now one of my favorite characters. Adam already had Archangel Michael's sword ready in his hands. He lunged forward, not giving us time to stop him.
アダムダメです。
問答無用。
確かに もはや問答は無用だな。
Adam swung his sword, aiming at Metatron's neck. Metatron didn't even try to dodge it. No sound followed, neither the splatter of rending flesh, nor the clang of the sword having been parried.
お前は天使が作ったと言った。我々がお前に何のセーフティーも仕込まないと思った。
What? Adam's sword touched the surface of Metatron's neck, refusing to dig a millimeter into his skin. Gritting his teeth, Adam put all his strength into pushing the sword forward. Metatron flung Adam aside. Eve promptly hurried to and kneeled at his crumpled figure. Metatron snapped his fingers and multiple thunderbolts struck down from the sky at the ground around Razia, locking her inside a cage of lightning. Well, shit. Messenger. Metatron finally turned to me. Oddly, I didn't feel afraid. The situation was simple. Kill and prevail, or die and perish.
彼女は新しい世界の新しいイブ。その名は古い。
Fuck you. Her name is Kugutsu Sorami.
空見はどうしたのかと聞いている。
Metatron sighed and snapped his fingers. The next moment, a girl appeared by his side.
空見
Sorami didn't react. Despite her eyes being open, she had no expression on her face, as if hypnotized. Her pupils sparkled gold. Did she boot Gethel's eyes? Metatron whispered something to the lifeless girl. What? The girl, her expression still a void, nodded. The fuck did you do to her? Sorami gave him a nod and glanced around the white space. She closed her eyes and proceeded to chant her prayer to the future silently, serenely. Then she reached out and grasped something that no one else but her could apparently see, pulling it towards herself. Please don't tell me I fucked up!
それらすべてを捨て去り、単一を選択せよ。進むべき時間よ。止まるべき時間よ。その扉に身を委ねよ。その扉に身を捨てよ。世界はすべて断ち切られた未来のために。
Sorami initiated the raison d'ere Metatron forced upon her. Vision that led to the future. Eyes that had the power to define the future through mere observation. Something from far beyond time was on its way to our realm. Jerusalem? Countless strands of light, rending white space asunder, appeared out of thin air. The strands eventually melted into an arc, morphing into something akin to a white door. Sorami collapsed like a puppet with its string cut.
Sorami!
Messenger. 彼女を頼む。
かしこまりました。
Sorami suddenly vanished from my sight.
というわけだ。あとは君たちを倒し、私と彼女、そして未来へとつながる者たちがあの扉から出てゆく。このくだらん現実と切り離された希望に満ちた未来へな。
You're just giving me many reasons to hate you. My blood was ready to boil over by the time he ended his speech. Calm down, Tendao Setsuna. Focus on defeating the damn angel in front of you right now. I pulled the Sword of the Seven Deadly Sins from the pocket dimension and lunged forward. Concentrating my magic to it, I initiated the summoning protocol.
暴食の罪を両親の理解なく知恵も誇りもなくただひたすら食らい尽くす汝が姿を世に示せ
Letting out a deafening snort, the giant boar opened its vast jaws. Metatron swung his hand once and the beast split apart. Probably finding the idea of dirtying himself with blood unappealing, he took a step back to avoid the rain of crimson that followed. Skipping over the carapace of the beast in a split second, I launched a drop kick at Metatron. It did connect, but Metatron managed to guard against it with his steel arm. Though it seemed to have succeeded at upsetting him at least. The blood that flung from my feet as I launched the kick splattered all over him. Metatron shuddered in anger at having himself besmirched with filthy blood. Good, I don't give a shit! Not listening, I swung my sword downward. Metatron answered by pulling his own sword out of the pocket dimension and clashing it against mine. Wait a minute! A silver blade of incredible length adorned with its strange geometric symbols. That's Oshiba Hagene's blade! Exceeding the speed of Oshiba Hagane, he flung Kabanemaru at me. Steel met steel, magic bursting out of the point of contact alongside regular sparks. I imbued my muscle cells with Takemikazuchi and somehow pushed his future-defining blade away. I proceeded to push my blade diagonally down towards his shoulder, to which he promptly answered with his own swing from below. The attack that defied both time and space reached me before I had time to finish mine. I thought I dodged it, but it seemed that wasn't the case. I avoided a mortal wound by a hair's breadth. Good thing I wasn't too mindful about my spinal cord cracking when I twisted my body, or I would have been dead by now. Now I managed to escape with only my shoulder damaged. Ordering my nanomachines to fix the wound and imbuing their function with water magic, I proceeded to counterattack. I chose the 7 beasts, summoning them all at once. The Beast of Gluttony, the Molten Gold of Sloth, the Azure Flame of Wrath, the Rotten Chains of Envy, the Silver Lion of Pride, the Mirror Knight of Lust. Calling them all at once, I had them charge straight at Metatron, but I knew that wouldn't be enough. Not even close to defeat the Steel Angel. A stringent sound reverberated in my ears. I jumped back out of reflex, feeling an odd tingle at my right arm. I tried raising it up and realized it was gone. It seemed like that sound and tingle resulted from my arm being chopped off. I neither despaired nor displayed shock at losing the limb. I knew accidents like that were part of battle. As I looked back at Metatron, I spotted some sort of emerald string-like thing surrounding him. Enlarged, decrypt. That threat seemed to have made exclusively of ones and zeros. I glanced at my arm lying on the ground. Nothing grotesque like meat stuck out of its cross-section, though it had turned black, as if coated in coal tar. It seemed he wasn't lying. I tried ordering my nanomachines to regenerate it, but my cells simply refused to listen. For better or worse, I didn't feel pain either. Still, I realized this had put me at a serious disadvantage. I felt the fangs of cold fear begin digging into my heart. I didn't quite know how to proceed. Metatron had yet to activate his raison d'etre, and as long as it hadn't, I couldn't activate mine either. Understanding the properties of my foe was the core element to my counterattack spell. What was he living for? What did he expect to find in that future of his? I had to understand him enough so that I could find answers to these questions. He was not like Oshiba Hagane. The boy I slayed rejected both the past and the present, but he still acknowledged the future, for whatever it was. The core element of his being was resignation, or, in a way, hope. Metatron used to be known as the Righteous Enoch, an angel of supreme power, the one closest to God, even called the Lesser God by some. Think. What were the core aspects of his existence? What were the core deeds he performed? He first defied God, then served and revered him. Then his lord let him down again, and in response he trampled over him. Now he was trying to surpass his divine father, become more absolute existence. He made a new world of his own design and even prepared an Eve for it, Sorami. Discarding both the past and present, he decided to save the future alone. The past of most had been soaked full from shed blood, and the present could be at times be as harsh as a winter's gale. But the future, severed clean from the bitter past and the tough present, would be as bright as the sun itself. Without inheriting ill will from the past, Metatron would create a new, clean world. In other words, hoping to lead him on a little, I parted my lips.
Metatron, お前は天使だ。天使である以上、虚偽は許されぬことだろう。一つ質問させろ。
Technically, he was also a human, so...
お前は自分が作り上げる世界こうあるべしなどと考えているわけじゃない。
I took a deep breath and readied my words like a blade.
お前は単に過去が嫌いなだけだ。蔑まれた記憶、崇めた者からの裏切り、そういったものがごちゃ混ぜになって、ただ何もかもが嫌になっただけだ。違うか？
I could spot a slight change in Metatron's
ど
countenance.
うしたメタドン。煩わしいくらいの殺気を出して、今の言葉が気になったか？小心者の大天使。
いいだろう。お前の傲慢を裁いてやろう。
With almost palpable killing intent, Metatron lunged towards me.
投げるぞ。使い。
A ridiculously blunt heads-up reached me through the telepathic link. I vaulted into the sky, catching Adam's projectile in my left hand, letting the Picati sword fall down to the ground.
アルキストラテーゴス。
The flaming sword of Archangel Michael, the sole weapon that could oppose Metatron's flames. And so the weapon currently in his hands could do little against it.
その刀は大柴鋼のものだ。お前が使うな。
The divine flames of the Archangel's sword were potent enough to melt down a witchblade like Shira Yamihime Kabanemaru. How the hell did I get that right? The blade in Metatron's hands turned to a mere unshapely stick of molten steel, with only the intact hilt still testifying it actually used to be a sword.
私のものだったのだな。
With that, he threw the molten sword aside. He had no right to brag. All he ever did was hand the blade to Oshiba Hagane, who was the one that mastered it and made it truly his own. With a mocking smirk on his face, Metatron readied something akin to a wand.
君たちに未来を見せて。
I felt my back turn to ice.
ミトラース。
Even though I hate you, that still looks fucking badass as hell. A beam of blinding light shot out of both ends of the wand, turning it into something akin to a double-bladed sword. Black threads of indescribable material appeared out of thin air and coiled around its blade. I could tell it was the very weapon that launched the inferno that annihilated God. Having it pointed at me was enough to fill me with a sensation of impending doom, a feeling that my very soul could possibly turn to dust the next second. Still, I had to determine the nature of this weapon. Colored black and white, it could launch all obliterating pillars of flame, a weapon of divine destruction from the future. The flames that assaulted us back then were more powerful than any from Inferno. Still, I'd already countered them once, and could do so again. For flames, no matter how potent, were still fire. Combustion. As long as they obeyed the laws of science, I could find countless ways to neutralize them. My only worry is that they might have contained a sort of alternate spiritual effect that, when unleashed, would unveil some non-scientific power. Over the course of history, fire was used to symbolize divinity in countless scriptures. For example, after Adam and Eve were banished from Eden, God assigned cherubs of his legion to keep humans away from the border between the realms, and they were all outfitted with swords of fire. Even among his lieutenants, the name of Uriel translated to Flame of God. Okay, this is completely different lore, but if I had to give a burning blade of a name, Levatane, basically the blade that the god Surt used. Meanwhile, Anathiel utilized 60 fiery rods to punish Metatron for his transgressions, the same ones that we'd been running away from on the Sixth Stratum. Archangel Sindolphin had been so powerful the flames raging within him burst out of his body, burning another seraph, Hadraniel. And finally, Metatron. Among titles such as the Chancellor of Heaven or the Lesser God, he had also been called a Pillar of Fire. Apparently, it came from the idea that the flame pillar that guided Moses was Metatron himself. The embodiment of guidance, a Pillar of Fire. What kind of divine essence could have been hidden in this name? I was about to enter the biggest mad gamble of my life. 1. Take Metatron's attack head-on and survive somehow. 2. Ascertain its nature. Or 3. Counterattack. I could do it. I had no choice, so I had to do it. I grit my teeth. I steeled my heart to take the hit without trying to run, but also refusing to give in to the sweet call of abandoning sensible thought. As long as life coursed in my veins, I continued to think, looking for an opening as offensive.
生き残ってから伝えることにする。
Metatron gave me a confident smile. He seemed to have absolute faith in his weapon.
ミトラース、オードリジェクト。人は大地に生え、ここは貴様のいるところではない。
The black and white of his blade intermingled to form a spiral and spun at me like a giant snake.
かわせ、バカ野郎が。
言われなくとも。
Exceeding the speed of an Aphiel's whip, the monochroma light pursued me like a guided missile. I kicked off the ground and flew through the sky, moving left and right, up and down, but whenever I'd glance back, I'd see the light following me. A power of untold magnitude pursued me, hell-bent on eradicating me, body and soul. I bent my body at a painful angle to avoid the light, but it promptly turned around and shot at me again. I couldn't dodge this one. I glanced down and readied Michael's sword to meet the light head-on. In the end, I didn't learn much. A technique of rejection, launching a light of lethal intensity that pursued its target relentlessly. It definitely had a spiritual factor to it, but I still couldn't tell what it was. I couldn't read his hand. Mine, on the other hand, had barely any cards left. Still, I had to do this. I had no choice but to meet him head-on. I released the magic of the sword, making it explode in azure flames. The sword of Archistrategos, Michael. At this point, the chemistry mattered little. It made no difference whether I met the flame this potent with water or another flame. Beam closing in on me embodied the full might of the Archangel closest to God. The flames at my side embodied the full might of the Archangel that led God's legions. I also added my own power to the mix. I crashed my sword into the light with a howl. Flame clashed with flame. Huh? Metatron let out a scornful snort. I finally comprehended the vileness of his flame. Targeting only humans, pursuing them to the ends of the earth, rejecting, consuming them. It was a weapon designed to hunt mankind. Okay, I'm definitely wrong, probably. And so it had no effect on anything else. No matter how strong Michael's sword was, Metatron's flames would slip past it as it was never their target, crashing into me alone. The flames are but a fraud. Still, few things could have been more effective on this situation. I met them head-on just like a did the windmill. I don't know what the hell that is. I felt death breathing down on my neck. Was it the end? Resignation overcame me. After all this, after I'd finally see through his nature, unable to withstand the fiery embrace, I'd turn to ash in a few seconds. God damn it! An annoying remark found me mere moments before the flames could consume me. Suddenly I was flung aside. Adam crashed into the flames in my stead. The hands he used to protect his face turned the color of coal, yet the onslaught of fire refused to cease. Adam tried to soften the onslaught by releasing the entirety of magic he held within his body, but it proved to be hardly more significant than a pound of butter in front of a kennel of dogs.
Adam!
Giving him a quick nod, I dashed forward. Enduring unimaginable pain, Adam spat blood in response. Adam fell silent. Both his arms had already turned to ash. Metatron directed his gaze up to the sky and saw Tendao Setsuna floating serenely up there, also with his arms now there. The magic flowing through his veins turned to ice for a split second, for the eyes of the boy looked like those of the angels that used to look down upon him. Uncontrollable fury took hold of Metatron.
降りてこい。
What surprised the angel the most was that the boy seemed to have escaped the jurisdiction of Electro-Twine. Both of his arms were back in their place, fully regenerated. Okay, thank you.
見下されるのがそんなに嫌だったのか。
For the first time in a long while, a tinge of fear ran through Metatron's spine. It was as if the boy peeked at his heart, pried things that should have been untouched. The time was nigh for my race on dare to reveal itself once more.
この世は全て機械が動かしている。
With my words, the kingdom of unmitigated chaos, the land of rubbish and scrap descended upon the realm. Metatron's true nature, the pride of having attained power exceeding that of Michael, despite having been born immortal, and at the same time the feeling of inadequacy for being different, isolated from other divine servants of the Lord. The two conflicting emotions doubtlessly tortured him to no end. But that was never his true nature. He served directly at God's side. He felt himself closest to the Lord, and hence he had but a singular dream, to merge himself and God into one. The lesser God, he who was closest to God, he was called so. He acted so. At times he went overboard, getting sentenced to many a lash of the whip. Yet nonetheless, he had never been given up on becoming God, and that was why he schemed to lord over the future. Despite all that, his technique made little sense. If he wanted to become God, absolute, his power should be that of crushing all and everything that opposed him indiscriminately. Yet the flame he launched at me was that of rejection, scorching only one chosen target. In other words, Metatron rejected everyone other than himself. Still, he had to become God and rule over all that he despised. God can only be God as long as there are others to define him as such. Let there be light gave birth not only to the world but also God himself. Wishing for lordship out of pride and rejecting others out of a feeling of inadequacy. That was his true nature, and the world he wished to create was that of perpetual supervision and control, where not a single leaf or tree or a blade of grass had freedom. Inside him simmered but a shell of a paradise, a true dystopia. Hence the only thing that could oppose him was the power of utopia. Everything in the world had a right to freedom, but they also had to obey their respective roles at the same time. Obeying them, we learned about each other, sharing our pain and resolve. And the weapon I create shall embody that essence.
神など存在しない。神になどすがらない。神に祈らない。神を信じない。神を求めない。我らが求めるは自由。神の複雑怪奇な鎖から解き放たれるための挟みちぎるものなり。ユニバーサルマシン。時の氏神。これを魔起にして西方を鋳造する。
I shall use my race on dare to unbind the shackles he put on mankind, creating an unyielding force to match the weapon he created for himself in the world of the future. The smiths, Tubal Cains, of the kingdom jumped to their anvils, fashioning a weapon to fulfill my request. Ooh! That shit looks awesome! Unconventional, but friggin' awesome. Twin swords sharing a single handle in the shape of a pair of giant scissors. The one blade shown in vibrant vermilion, the color of immortality. The other in calm azure, the color of death. Both blessed and cursed, both in the name of twins from the myths of ancient Greece. The nature of the twin sword was but one, liberation from constraints. Metatron's attention switched to me. Landing in between Adam and him, I met the so-called mightiest of angels head-on. The Harbinger of Ash and the Dioscuri clashed. They proved equal. A double-bladed sword of rejection and subjugation creaked against a scissor sword of unbinding shackles and attaining freedom. With their natures equal in strength, the fight came down to the raw skills of their wielders. Metatron flung his sword both towards my head and my shin. The blades of the scissor blade turned and extended, blocking both attacks at the same time.
完全だ。
Love to break this to you, but your world sucks.
そういう世界はな、一人で作って一人で消費しろ。
I howled and swung and kicked. Neither of us could acknowledge the other. Neither of us could stand down. He wished to control us. We wished to be free. There was no room for compromise. I snapped the jaws of Dioscuri. A mere moment before it could bite through Metatron's neck, he jerked his head back. Regular techniques of swordmanship were no use when wielding giant scissors. As such, I felt as if the peculiar blade controlled my actions rather than the other way around. I spun my body as if in the middle of a dance, borrowing the strength from the centrifugal force to swing my blade at Metatron like some crazy merry-go-round. 13th, 14th clash. I refused to cease my assault, spinning at Metatron as the incarnation of a whirlwind. Without a second's rest, with no time to take a breath, I kept hacking and slashing at my foe. Unable to bear my onslaught, Metatron finally took a step back.
モードリジェクト。
He pointed his blade at me. From its tip, a flurry of flames that rejected all of mankind burst forth.
爆殺前段ゴルビアス。
Rejection rejected. The flame split into two, and with its original roll severed, it dissipated into the nether. Metatron looked at me in astonishment. He had absolute confidence in his flame. His pride refused to believe a mere mortal could sever it with ease. The steel angel gritted his teeth. He was but a mortal, a relic of the past. He couldn't comprehend how one such as I could possibly hold his ground against his might.
それがこの武器の役割だから。お前がその武器に拒絶と支配の力を込めたようだ。
Tokyo Babel was a place where one's will and beliefs were all that mattered. That which you lived for, that which you kept pushing forward. The will to keep on living. Humans, angels, or demons all lived for a reason, be it for the good of themselves, others, or something else entirely. And my raison d'etre was to triumph over impossible odds. To the grand angels and mighty demons, we humans probably looked like nothing more than ants scuttling along the dirt, flung around by fate. Still, no one in their souls ever wished to be flung around. Everyone wished to choose their paths for themselves rather than having them forced upon them by someone else. To turn the tide in the face of overwhelming odds, to triumph over the tyrannies of lifeless.
この僕、天道刹那の生きるべき理由だ。大天使メタトン、お前の夢も希望も生きる理由もすべて理不尽を上回る大理不尽をもって僕が打ち砕く。
Metatron gave me a vicious glare.
ふざけるな、ふざけるな、ふざけるな、ふざけるな。お前の過去は知っている。神になろうとした失敗作で100億の人間をその口一つで葬った大罪人めが。
The words ignited a spark of regret in my chest for a split second. Days long past of a nightmarish life. Indeed, his words did not lie, for I was in truth a sinner of unparalleled crimes. Still, nonetheless, no. Because of that, I had the duty to prevent this angel from taking over the seat of the world as its ruler.
私がお前に打ち砕かれるはずがない。打ち砕かれていいはずがない。真たる神がまがいものの神に敗北するなど。
いや、メタトン、僕も貴様もどちらもまがいものなんだよ。お前も神になどなれやしない。
抜かせ。
Our swords clashed. The monochromal light of his blade coiled around the vermilion and azure of mine. Speed, strength, and technique mattered little at this point. Or rather, they were nothing but a superfluous distraction, for it was our beliefs and allegations, our raison d'etre that waged war. Pride and inaccuracy. The contradictory nature of his inability to stand being surpassed by mortals, yet having his very roots in their flock, coupled with being looked down upon by other angels as buoyo. Rejection and subjugation. And so he rejected humans, angels, and demons alike. He took away the free will of mankind at his new world, for it was irrefutably the very seed of destruction that brought an end to this. And so, sweeping the countless contradictions under the rug, Metatron set out to become God, if only to validate his core belief. He reminded me of myself. I tried to become a god once as well. I was designed to become one. Everyone tried to push me onto a divine throne while sweeping countless contradictions under the rug, desperately struggling to turn a blind eye to reality. But I ended up destroying it all. I never wished to become a god, for the concept of the Lord was always a painfully plain and simple program. No personality, no real power to interfere with reality. God never truly did anything out of his own volition. he merely answered prayers.
そんなものが神であるものか。
Metatron swung his Harbinger of Ash down with a cry. I caught it in between my scissor blades, the most irregular of sword clashes. I cried.
それが神なんだ。そうならなければいけないんだ。
Metatron couldn't find the words to retort. His faith in the Lord had already been shattered by the divine calamity. And now his dream of taking his old lord's place, his very race on Dare, was on the verge of collapse. The days he spent on Earth as the righteous Enoch, the millenniums he spent as the mightiest of angels, Metatron, all of his deeds and accomplishments were on the verge of returning to dust. Metatron leapt back. With his breathing uneven and trembling frame adorned with countless bloody wounds, he no longer looked anything like the once graceful and dignified master of angels. And I looked no better myself. Metatron's flames had already scorched most of my flesh to coal. The wounds were so severe I had long lost ability to sense pain. Realizing that the next strike would most likely be the last, we put more distance between each other. Metatron suddenly opened his mouth.
嫌だ嫌だ嫌だ嫌だ嫌だ。お前の言っていることが正しいなど認めてたまるものか。我が全てをかけて認められん。
Trembling all over, Metatron continued to howl. Careful not to let him out of my sight, I took a quick glance at my surroundings. Eve kneeled at Adam's side, probably trying to fix him up. Raziel still stood motionless in her prism of lightning, but most importantly, I took a deep breath and slowly let it out. I didn't think Metatron's display pathetic in the slightest. Doubtless, I myself would lose my cool like him if someone tried denying my own race on Dare. Still, I had to deny the mighty angel. Everything about Metatron changed as he pointed his Harbinger of Ash at me. Almost palpable dignity burst out of his posture. The glory of the one closest to God returned to his countenance. He was, after all, the only being, even among angels, whose influence ever reached up to the Lord. In the end, that was the one true form of Metatron. I readied the scissor blade Diascuri. This blade still had something veiled within. I, its maker, would know. Still, I was unsure if I myself had the strength to unleash the sword's hidden potential. What did I want to save? Kugu's army? Everyone? Of course, but that was not all. Wasn't the one I wished to save the most that mirror image of myself that chose to walk a mistaken path? That was likely it. The scissor blade was a tool to sever shackles, to allow one to soar the skies and dance in the air. The essence of palpable freedom molded into a weapon. It was not a tool to inflict pain.
Mitoras. Fuin Kaijo.
The pillar of fire covered the skies, a blade of absurd length, and with a single goal to strike down Tendao Setsuna. It descended, ready to incinerate its foe. No tricks or schemes, or no techniques, only genuine intent to thoroughly obliterate. Whoops. Clutching the twin handles tight in my hands, I exhaled a breath. I aligned my gaze to his, nodding to myself. And so we both lunged forward, ready to embrace death. The flames raged in the sky like a phoenix. I couldn't breathe. If I had tried, my throat would have likely burned from the inside. My Diascuri, the very essence of which was severing everything, proceeded to split the never-ending tsunami of flames. But while the blade would hold out, I realized I myself likely wouldn't. I felt as if a giant boulder was trying to crush the life out of me, the terror of the surrounding flames consuming me from within. I endured, tried to hold my ground. Forgetting to breathe, I pushed forward, step by step. The pain I had once forgotten came alive again. The remainder of my skin simmered, turning to ash. Flames invaded this inside of my body. My blood began to boil and evaporate. My veins screamed in pain. Still, I pushed forward. Forward and forward until I found myself at the very bosom of my target. I stumbled upon the Archaeostrategos sword lying on the ground and launched it at my foe with a wide kick. The divine sword of Archangel Michael flew towards Metatron, splitting his flames apart. Metatron somehow shifted his own sword, that by now was too huge and potent to be held properly, much less controlled, to knock Archaeostrategos off the trajectory, giving me an opening to proceed with my first step. I darted through the newly opened gap between the flames, aiming the jaws of my scissor blade at Metatron's neck. The Harbinger of Ash in Metatron's hand was a double-bladed sword, and so while the front blade currently raged in chaotic flames, the back one, still retaining its normal shape, jumped straight into the jaws of my scissors. Not giving me a second to react, I fell straight, splitting the hilt of my blades apart. With the conjoined part severed, the hilts of course came apart as well. Now to proceed with my second step. The scissor blade Dioscuri symbolized two things in the mythology of Greece, one divine, another earthly. The immortality of gods, the blade of Vermilion. The mortality of men, the blade of Azure. Hence it was in death that the Azure blade would unveil its true power. The blade of Vermilion was also immortal to begin with. It would revive if destroyed. As the Azure blade burst apart, its pieces assaulted Metatron like grenade shrapnel. Meanwhile, the Vermilion blade returned to my hand as good as new in a split second. The onslaught of the Azure Shard took the entirety of Metatron's attention. The final step. The immortal blade sank deep into Metatron's chest, piercing the very source of his spiritual power, his heart. Whew! You lose! Metatron, his eyes wide open, stared at the sword sticking out of his chest. The inferno surrounding us suddenly vanished, almost as if it had never been there. With the link to their catalyst, Metatron's magic, severed, flames no longer posed a threat to me. Metatron, recovered from the initial surprise, let out a long, peaceful breath of resignation. And collapsed, his dual-bladed sword tumbling down the white surface. Yay! It wasn't survival that defined the line between victory and defeat in our battle. Acknowledging reality ushered in Metatron's defeat. He realized he couldn't become God, that the vision of his world was mistaken. Okay, now all we gotta do is take care of Messenger and then we should be fine. Metatron proceeded to tell the story of his life, with eyes staring into the distance. He struggled and struggled and struggled. He banished evil, he fought injustice, wishing only happiness and peace upon the world. Among the men that ascended to heaven, some mistook him for another god. For that, he had been punished with a fiery whip. Yet naught but satisfaction dwelled in his heart as he bore the agony of the flames. The one closest to the Lord, the one closest to the ruler of the entire universe. Even the angels that used to look down upon Metatron were eventually forced to bow their heads and worship him. Whenever doubt sprouted in his heart, it would be promptly dispelled by a whisper directly from the Lord. And so he prided himself on being one of his servants. One day, God left the future in his hands, past, present, and future. In heaven, where the border between these concepts was vague, only God himself had the right to tinker with the future. After Metatron received his divine decree, he proceeded to nurture the new world. Yet it all fell apart with the advent of the divine calamity. God banished angels from heaven, while hell succumbed to a massive flood. And so Metatron promptly severed the ties between the present and the future. With that, all the current worlds lost the power to advance forward. Okay, so Metatron's not the true culprit, and if that's the case, because he wasn't the one that caused God to become mad, somebody else did, which I'm pretty sure we will discover in Lilith's route if I had to take a guess. So basically, even Metatron was just a pawn. And so they withered away. Some managed to hold out for a while longer, but they too were eventually destroyed by God's madness instead. Still, Metatron considered this a temporary measure. He planned to eventually cure God and resurrect the withered worlds back to their prime. But then he met Gethel.
Metatron! 助けて！お願い！見たくないの！
Gethel raved, trembling like a leaf. He calmed her down and inquired as to reason for her outburst. Metatron's heart filled with joy akin to terror. She laid eyes upon the Lord's true form, a visage no soul till then had ever witnessed.
どんなお姿だったんだ。
見てみればいいじゃないか。私が見たものをさあ見てみるがいい。
The smile of a madman ravished her lips. She covered Metatron's eyes with her palms. The next moment he saw the world from her eyes instead. All of the sights she ever witnessed were engraved in his mind. And so he saw for himself.
これが
Was that thing God? Was their lord a machine? Impossible. He couldn't believe it. Although, to be honest, I think a couple people in the comments did actually mention, yeah, it is pretty fitting for God to be an unfeeling machine. Not, okay, that's, the unfeeling part is kind of my words, honestly. Metatron fell into despair. If at least his divine father looked human, no matter how wretched or vile, Metatron would have still been able to make peace with that fact. He might have been disappointed if his lord had looked like a beast, yet he still would have accepted it. But God wasn't a living thing. Instead, it was an abstract, indescribable object. A wintry chill took hold of his heart as he came to a resolution. He decided to cut off God from this world. That thing had no place in their realm. The Lord worked for a time as long as eternity, if it was enough. The time was nigh for he himself to come to an end. And so the world no longer needed the past of serving under a thing. It only needed the future. If tomorrow existed, there was no need for today. He decided to control the future world so that another divine calamity could never occur. He decided to design a world free of sorrow, but then he realized that the current world was in the way of his new one. And so he had no choice. He had to find a way to do away with it. Even if he turned evil in the eyes of the present, he still had his own world to protect in the future. A world that was too beautiful to be soiled by the tainted hands of others. A juvenile emotion, like that of fighting with your peers for a toy. Nevertheless, whenever he'd look at his empty world of the future, joy would sprout in his heart. And so, to protect the beloved world of his design, he had to tear apart the world of the past. Such was his resolve, but if there was one thing he forgot, it was that there were still humans, angels and demons living in the past. That they'd challenge Metatron to retrieve their own right to the future. And that Tendao Setsuna, a boy with a fate stranger than the strangest of fantasies, turned into an inhuman monster that could easily slay angels and demons alike. A tiny oversight, no more.
誰も悲しまない世界を作りたかった。ただ、誰もが笑える世界を作りたかっただけだった。ああ、私は道を間違えたのだろうか。
No, it's not a bad idea, but you need to understand sorrow needs to exist in the world, otherwise humans won't grow. They would just stay stagnant. Metatron shot an astonished glance at Tendao Setsuna. He had been certain the boy would deny him again. I answered.
間違ってなどいない。自分の世界を、未来を守るためにやったことなんだろう。たとえ手段が誤っていたとしても、それだけは誇っていいことだ。
Yeah. I still hate you, but not as much as I did. He gave his all to the world. He did his best. That was the commendable and irrefutable truth.
私は努力した。
そうだな。
そして君に敗れた。それはもうどうでもいいことではある。だが未来だけが心配だ。
未来は僕たちが作ろう。
Metatron twisted his face in mock ridicule.
過去の亡霊のくせに未来とは。それにお前は。
I didn't need to wait for him to finish.
天使くらいにはなれるだろうさ。誰かが僕の後に石を積む。積めなくなれば、その後にまた誰かが積む。
The smile vanished from his face.
過去をやり直すことができないように、未来を作り直すこともできない。
The future was an amalgam of a plethora of coincidences occurring in the past. Mankind both worshipped and dreaded the future precisely because it was unknown, and it was that fear that led them to unite. Praying for a blissful future, hoping they had enough strength to fight back future perils. Defining the future would inherently bereave it of its major function. It would leave people locked in a perpetual present, unable to move forward. A satisfied smile crept onto Metatron's face.
そうだったのか。私の世界に欠けていたものはそれだったのか。
Metatron reached out with his right hand, trembling as if trying to grasp the future.
ようやく分かったのに、ようやく理解できたのに。これで。
A display of almost palpable regret. Regret no one else could comprehend. One that would follow him to the grave. It was neither punishment nor penance for his sins. He lost to the present, and so he had to perish.
まあ、終わりたくないな。
Forcing the last few words out, Metatron closed his eyes. Accepting death, his body fell apart. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. I watched as his body turned to dust. That was eventually picked up and scattered by the wind. Damn. That is where I'm going to end it. That seems like a pretty fitting spot. Primordial Lovers, oh my. But that's where I'm definitely going to end it. Oh my. Okay, fine, I admit it. Friggin' Metatron got himself a redemption. I still don't like him because of what the shit that he put Sorami through, without any regards to that, but damn it. It happens every time I start hating a character and then they give me a reason to kind of understand them and hate them less. Damn it! Every time! But then again, that's good. That's honestly good. I prefer three-dimensional villains that you can actually understand. If you have a one-dimensional villain that's just evil because they're evil, that's kind of boring. I prefer villains that actually, you know, have depth to them, and I can see Metatron actually... He's a damn good villain. He's a good character. I admit it. You win. Damn, that was awesome, though. Although, now that I look back at it, the battle with God only lasted like 6 freaking minutes. Which is kind of funny, honestly. I could have easily just covered that and then had it pick up right where we began the battle with Metatron. Shit! Damn, though. Oh, man. I'm pretty sure the next part's going to probably be the last part of the Sorami route. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know what the hell happened to Sorami, but she was clearly being brainwashed or being manipulated. Some sort of, like, hypnotized, obviously, by Metatron, obviously, forcing a Resundere on her. So that's probably, maybe that's what it meant when Setsuna said that he warped her Resundere. Which would suck, honestly. But anyway, if you did like this, be sure to let me know, and we'll definitely be picking this up soon. Well, you know, according to my usual schedule, of course. Like I said, I'm pretty sure we're getting close to the end of this route, maybe. If we are, well. Anyway, if you guys like this, be sure to let me know, because I like Tokyo Babel. I like it. So, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.